podcast is brought to you by Fireside.fm. Podcast hosting by podcasters for podcasters. Now on to the episode.
What are you doing?
Pretty good. I know it's been a while since we've recorded here. Been doing a lot of separate calls, I know, obviously, together. So it's just the matter of fact that we haven't recorded these, but felt like a good time to just kind of get back into that. So lots changed, right? Like it's been, even since December, and I think our last episode we recorded was I think it was like September. So yeah,
September, October, something like that.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, and if I think this is the topic we want to talk about, anyways, is it's productivity is kind of where I'm at. Obviously, I'm still doing the coding with it, but I'm also leveraging it a lot more. And I mean, OpenClaw is a big thing. I'm not even using that yet. I'm leveraging Claude Code a lot for that sort of, similar types of things. But it's been really interesting, just like all the different things that have come out in that sphere. I feel like my grasp of like MCPs and just the connective tissue that makes the productivity stuff work better, it has really improved a lot too. So yeah, I mean, I'm talking a lot. What are your thoughts on just the productivity stuff? Are you doing much yet, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. Like I've definitely, with cowork coming out, it's actually funny because I built a small app probably 2 months ago at this point that essentially like checked my email and then pulled out things for me to remember. So like this is more work focused, where it's like, what do I need to follow up on? What's, sitting on my radar that I might not be, taking action on? And it's just like, it's almost like a to-do list generated from my email, which, vibe coding it took me maybe an hour to put together. And then,
and just so I'm clear, you built an app specifically to do this, right?
Well, no, this is actually, it was an Electron app because it was on my desktop. So it was running and it could have been a full iOS app at some point, but I just kind of wanted to test out the idea. And then, Cowork comes out and essentially they have that built in. And I expanded that to tap into like my Slack as well. So I can look at all my Slack messages and tell me all the things I'm not responding to or whatnot. And so, I've definitely been playing in that space a bit. And it's been one of those interesting things of like, what's the technology problem and what's a like, my brain is broken problem, where it's like, definitely it's cool to have this stuff and have that like proactive, like, hey, these are the things I need to remember. But I've also noticed I tend to then ignore the messaging coming out of my AI telling me what I need to do. So it's like, it definitely helps, but it also is like, I haven't solved the problem completely at this point.
Yeah. I mean, in my experience, I've definitely been there where, like, without any kind of tooling or AI or any system, you keep up with the thing. It's always like the thing that's the most recent is the thing you keep up with.
Oh, for sure.
And, being a development manager like I am, like, that doesn't work because the next time somebody pings you and you're like in the middle of something and you probably haven't finished that thing, but now it's like, well, my brain's onto this one now. And so I've experienced this too. One thing that I did before I really dove into the AI productivity stuff is, I mean, I've been trying for years and I've never come up with a great system, but over the last, I don't know, probably almost a year, maybe, I guess now, I've been looking into a system called the para method. I forget what it stands for. We can link to it. There's a book around it, and like that system kind of worked. Like I never quite got it down, but the file structure and stuff like that really helped. And then like I layered on top of that, I guess I've been trying this again, even separate from the para method for a long time, to just have like a to-do list for every day that is pretty small, right? It's like the top priorities. And obviously you're going to do more than that.
Yep.
But if you at least get those couple things done, then your day feels productive.
Have you ever heard of Analog?
Not like as a productivity tool. I haven't. I don't think.
So you can kind of see that.
Oh, yep.
It's essentially cards, like physical cards that there's like today, next, and someday. And like the whole point of it is like every day you're supposed to write out like the to your point, 3 things, 5 things, whatever. Like it's got like what, 10 spots. So you're essentially never supposed to go over 10, but it's really like what are the couple things you need to do, and then you can actually track physically. And then like, I've got a stand over on my desk over here where it's just sitting constantly in view in a physical form. And it's kind of that same principle where it's like, A, it narrows things down, but B, it's always present, where a digital app, once you set it, it kind of just goes away. And it's that, C, if it's not in view, it kind of disappears. But
And I've completely experienced that because I've bounced back and forth for the last couple of years with like Obsidian or even just like notes, those sorts of things. And then I'm like, but I don't see it enough, to your point. And then I have to have, just a notebook. And then of course the notebook is only when I've got the notebook with me. So it's like this balancing act I keep trying to figure out. And I guess the point of why I'm bringing a lot of this up though, is that because I feel like and it's only been like a couple weeks, I guess, since I've really narrowed in like the way I wanted to use AI to help me. And it's a lot of the same things you talked about, but I feel like because I had been working on that part so much and it's less honestly about the para method and like the file structure, but it's more just about having the priorities and trying to keep up with that. And now like letting the AI essentially surface those priorities, or at least let me rethink, oh, what was that Slack message I may have missed or forgot about or whatever. Those things have been really helpful for me. Now it's been about 2 weeks since I've started again, like with my system, and we can dive in a little bit, in a few minutes, maybe about what I'm doing specifically, because it's a little different than what you did. Although at the end of the day, it's like we were both trying to do the same thing, like get all our messaging in a place where we can kind of figure out, did we miss something, or, stuff like that. So I think the concept's all right, but when you were talking about how it's been hard for you to kind of remember it, again, it's been 2 weeks. Maybe I'll get back into a bad habit, but so far I've been pretty good about getting my like taking those top priorities that, and I'm using Claude Code, that it surfaces for me, and then I transfer them over to my to-do list, which right now is in an app called TickTick, I think, which I can have on my phone and on my computer, and it's not the physical thing, so but I feel like I'm doing pretty good with that because I had that habit already of like making sure that my to-do list was updated and like actually going back to it. It also is better than at least like Obsidian or even just like the Notes app, because it is an app that, will give me its own reminders and things like that. So that system alone seemed to be working pretty well for me. The AI part is now the new part that is honestly exciting to me, because it's like, I feel like it's making me even more productive in a lot of ways. But I feel like I also kind of like cut you off on what you were talking about. So before we dive into like what my system is, maybe finish your thoughts on it, or just like what you're talking about with where yours is, and kind of maybe your thoughts on things you could improve or whatever.
I covered a lot of it. It's at this point, I'd say there's more holes than there's solutions on my side of things. Like I'm more poking at it versus like I've come up with a full system. And I know you and I have talked, and we'll dive into your system, which I'm definitely interested to see more of the details. But I've also, though, I'll just touch on this before we go further. I'm noticing too, though, that there's like almost a inverse side to having AI these days, where I'm actually more productive overall, but it almost feels dangerous in a way too, where it's like with AI tools, because like I always struggled with I had an idea and then it would die before I started doing anything with it, because it would be like that activation energy needed for me to actually do something. And that's going away, which is really cool in some ways, because like I found I always used to get in trouble. I mean, not really trouble, but like it was always a struggle for me when it's like a boring task I need to do for work, that it was like I just put it off because I'm like, it would take me, a couple minutes or whatever, but I had to do it. And I've got so much other stuff going on. It's always like, well, I don't want to do it right now. And AI has kind of like alleviated that, where it's just like, all I've got to do is kick off a task to do the basic stuff. And so like from that perspective, it's helped not necessarily keep track of stuff, but just like make me more productive from that perspective. But it also is like, I tend to now almost build too much stuff, and like execute on too much stuff. Whereas, and like there's some interesting stuff to it because it's like you can explore quicker, you can find what fails quicker, but you can also overcomplicate things too quickly. Where it's like, hey, now I can build an entire system when I really should only be building like a simple feature. And so I get a little too over ambitious, and like it's not completely productivity based, but it is kind of like yeah, and I've seen other people kind of talking about it where it's like now with AI, you can sit down, have a to-do list of things you want to do, and 6 hours later you look back and you're like, I didn't actually achieve any of those things, but I did build this, and this. And it's like, so you're productive, but it's almost like that there's that term, I can't remember the name of it. It's like false productivity or whatever, or like essentially like you're busy, but you're not actually doing the things that are most important. And so like, I'm kind of missing the piece that you're talking about where it's like, how do you really like leverage the technology to keep you on target?
Yeah. I mean, that makes me think of so many things too that I've either read or even experienced now myself with just the fact that you can do more. I mean, so let's put it this way. You can kick off more things, you can start more things, you can have the AI do more things, but you at the end of the day are still only one person. Or maybe you have a team, but you're still only X number of people, and you don't scale infinitely.
Exactly.
And, for me, the biggest problem, and this isn't something my productivity system has actually helped with yet. I'm still figuring that out. The productivity system is primarily about all of the non-coding things and all the, organization of that so that it makes it easier to focus on the coding stuff. But the coding stuff and I know we want to kind of stick to one topic, so I don't want to go too far into that right now, but I'm okay talking about it a little bit more. But, it's like that's been my struggle right now with the coding stuff is, for example, we have Rollbar as our error tracking system or monitoring system, and it's always hard to keep up with it. So, one thing that I've done more recently is I essentially parallelized I'd have, this is a co-work thing. I have co-work go out to Rollbar. I say, find the top 10 or, worst offenders of the last couple days or whatever. And then I have it write up the ticket. And then I basically hand all those tickets off to a bunch of different Claude codes. So let's just say I've got 10 running, but then that's great. Like I got all those started, but then getting them across the finish line has been a problem. And I think the breakdown there that I've noticed, at least so far, is that I've not built a complete system yet that encapsulates all of the steps to get it out. I've got the first part done, but I don't have a system yet that does a good job reviewing or running tests or like giving me confidence. So it kind of breaks down for me right now there because I don't have good systems in place, is the way I view it. And that's a solvable problem, I think, to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, for sure. Like it's another thing though that I've noticed personally, and it's not just like coding, but it's just with AI usage in general, is that when you get busy and you're using AI a lot and you're using it across things, it's not even just coding, but there's definitely a piece there. But it's like, unless you can keep up with truly digesting everything it's generating, you get these gaps in your understanding as well, that it's like, you can compensate for them as long as you know what it's doing to a certain extent. But there's definitely times where I've been like, man, I really like don't feel as confident about this as I should based off of like how I used to work. And it's another piece where it's like, how do you, and my point with this is that if you're solving, 10 bugs at a time and, with Claude Code, do you feel confident enough about understanding what the solve was for each of them and being able to truly because you can't trust the AI to do it perfectly, like it's gotten so much better from when we even started this podcast, but it's still, I notice things where it's like, there's so much interpretation of things where it's like, it can interpret it one way where the logic and the business logic and all that type of stuff truly needs it another way. And so it's like, it fixed the bug, but it might have actually introduced something different. And, testing will help to a certain extent, but there's just, again, those gaps where it's like, if you don't have the full human understanding of it to make sure that it's truly correct, not just like valid, it's just hard to compensate for. So it's like, yeah, you can definitely keep pushing the system, and I think it's good to push the system, but I think there's still that layer of how do you get that understanding that you need in the end.
Yep. Totally agree. I mean, that was the biggest thing I realized. And part of the reason why I decided to start there with roll bar, or any error for that matter, doesn't need to be roll bar, but
sure.
Because you've got the stack trace, you've got all this data essentially that felt like it was going to point the AI or Claude or whatever in the right direction. And I think for the most part, yes, it does.
It does, yeah.
But one thing I learned though is that like I had an instance where I had two separate bugs that were two completely individual things. They were on the same page, but like they weren't the same bug. They were triggered by two different things. But at the end of the day, when Claude wrote those two pull requests or branches or whatever, it ended up being almost the exact same spot of the code that was the fix for both.
Yep.
And again, like if I had a full encompass system where the AI was doing all of it, it probably would have figured all that out itself.
Yeah, it could have recursively kind of merged in one, then checked it and figured that out. But yeah.
But my human brain was like, oh, wait, I should probably just merge these together and like had it do it. I kind of forced it to do that. And now, I mean, I don't regret it, but I kind of look back and I'm like, I probably should have pushed it a little bit harder and been like, okay, let's do the first one first and then the second one. But even still, like, even if that wasn't a problem, which again is a solvable problem, just something I ran into, the thing I noticed is that in both cases, it didn't really have good acceptance steps for itself.
Sure.
And of course, you could do automated testing and a lot of different things. But like in one case, it was hitting a file or it was like trying to find, it was a bot basically trying to find a robots.txt file. And, it was throwing an error because of whatever reason. In the other case, it was just, a user interaction and it was throwing a different error. And, but neither of the acceptance steps that it was going to use based on its own little, setup, neither one was going to actually test that specific thing. And so I don't know, again, I didn't let it play out on its own, but I don't know if it actually would have solved the problem or I would have just like painted over it, right? Like put a Band-Aid on it or something.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we're close. We'll probably get there, but it's like, there's still some learning to do for sure.
And but it is that case of you've got to be paying attention enough to catch it because it isn't guaranteed. Because to your point, like, yeah, you could have, an orchestrator type pattern where the orchestrator is checking things and things are running and like it continues. It's the Ralph loop essentially, right? Like it keeps going until it figures it out. But I've seen enough disconnects in what seems to be the right thing, but it isn't actually the right thing. I mean, that's so much of AI in general. It's like, does it pass the surface test? Like that first, like, yeah, it looks great when you just like glance at it. You're like, oh, that's great. But like, if you look a little bit deeper, do you see that it actually solved it fully, or did it just like do a surface level, it looks great type of thing, but when you dig deep, it's actually like there's something. And I'm not saying that that's always the case, but I've just seen enough of it. And like, honestly, just in all AI output, it's like, it always looks good on first glance. But if you dig into it and have an understanding of enough stuff, it's like, it's varying, it's not consistent. And that's the dangerous part of the set it and forget it and let the AI take care of all of it with like no understanding at all.
Right. And I mean, that's a whole nother thing that I haven't even tried. And I know lots of people are building lots of things with OpenClaw or even just Claude Code and Codex and all these with the Ralph loop, whatever. Well, I guess the Ralph loop technically is a Claude Code specific thing, isn't it?
I think so.
Either way, same principle. Yeah. I'm sure there's a version that can run with Codex. I digress. I think this is a good thing good point to segue back to the productivity stuff though, because as I was laying all that out and just talking about it, it reminded me that a lot of the reason why I moved in the direction I did with this productivity stuff was because of this exact thing. Like I was actually doing more coding on top of all the stuff that I'm trying to review and keep up with. But by having 10 or whatever it was, Claude's running and doing stuff, I was not completely neglecting things, but I was also not keeping up with things as much as I should have been. And so I had seen this post by Obi Fernandez, he's been pretty prominent in the Ruby and Rails community for a long, long time. A couple of years ago, I saw him at a conference keynote, and his whole talk was about AI. So I've known that he's been, on the AI bandwagon, at least since that point. Well, since before, obviously, since he did a keynote on it. Anyways, the post that he had though, and this was quite a while ago. It wasn't until just recently that I acted on it, but he was essentially saying, like put in a prompt to Claude Code and say, I want to be a high functioning, dev manager or whatever you want to be, and I need you to help me and build me a system. And that's kind of why I asked the question earlier about you built an app. Like, I didn't build an app. I haven't built an app yet or anything, but I don't also need to in this case because I'm just using it like on my work machine. Although, I'll make a footnote that it worked so well on my work machine, I actually went to my personal machine and did something similar. But to finish the thought, his post was essentially, tell it that prompt I said a second ago, like, make me a high functioning person in whatever you are, and make sure you fill that in so it knows that context. And basically the only guiding principle was, like, beyond that was, use markdown files so that you can, make it lightweight, transferable, put it in a Git repo, whatever. And it was pretty crazy, like how quickly, like just having it do that and then setting up a base structure, it asks questions and things like that, and I could pass stuff in. But it got me up and running like really quickly. And then of course I wanted to pull in Slack, and I wanted to pull in, email and calendar. I think are basically the only ones I've done so far. And now, and then also like we use Shortcut as our ticketing system, and Rollbar I've mentioned already. So, it's this nice thing where now I can say, like, every morning I can just go to this. I call it my command center. Like, there's lots of different ways. And the funny thing too is that just in the last week, I've seen people all over Twitter and other places basically doing the same type of thing. And also like layering Obsidian on top, which I actually already did too, because as I mentioned earlier, I had Obsidian. And I was like, oh, Obsidian reads Markdown. And I don't actually look at the Obsidian very much myself, but there are a couple things, like I do one-on-one docs or like have it tell me, like, what are things for one-on-ones with my team. And it's nice to have Obsidian to like view the doc there. But otherwise, like most of the time, I'm just chatting with it. I'm telling it, hey, remind me to do this tomorrow, or, find all my messages. And then I've got prompts, which are like, what, good morning, something like that. I actually turned them into recently, just this or yesterday. I turned a lot of these prompts into Claude skills. So a slash command essentially. So now I just have like a /morning/ wrap up or whatever. Mostly because like it was working pretty well. I could say like, hey, good morning, like give me my stuff. But I wanted to make it consistent. So I just wanted to make it a command. But either way, it's really cool because for me, not only does it just give me that summary of all that stuff, but like throughout the day now I can say, oh, I did X, Y, and Z, like make note of this and we can do it later. And then, it'll surface it back. It's almost like in a lot of ways, it's like things that you can already do that I've tried with all those systems we talked about earlier, but like just having someone else essentially as the AI think about it and remember it, even if it's, because I don't have to think about which file to put it in or any of that stuff. Like that's what the para method's all about. And it's great because it like gives you a structure to like put things in your projects folder or your areas folder and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't care about that now anymore. It's like, just like, Claude, you put it wherever. And by the way, I've thought about naming it something else instead of Claude, but I don't even address it as Claude. It's just like, here you go. Put it somewhere for me. But yeah, it's been great. And then like for my home stuff, I'll even just mention, I sometimes miss like school emails. We get so many of them or whatever. So I basically have it do the same type of thing where it's just like, pull my emails and pull my calendar and just tell me, what's coming up today. Did we miss something for school? Whatever. And like the setup honestly was 10 minutes. I mean, granted, And one other thing I'll add, and then I'll just kind of let you, add whatever you want or ask questions. Today I actually ran into an issue where I haven't figured this out yet, but I've been doing this in the terminal, and Claude terminal like broke down on me for some unknown reason that I didn't even try and figure out yet. Because I've been using it, I also have Claude desktop, and I can just go to the Claude code desktop, go to the same folder, run all the same commands, and it's just like I was up and running again instantly. Yeah, I mean that's a lot. So I don't know what questions or thoughts do you have?
I mean, it's an interesting thing. I kind of on a bit of a tangent. I've actually seen a lot of push in general lately for the concept of like, everybody's doing agents these days. And so much of it is like, essentially agents that are kind of cut adrift to a certain extent. Like they live on a server or wherever and they do a bunch of work. I've seen this concept where people are starting to think like folder structures and file system is actually an interesting place to essentially like build in all of the logic and workflows for agents. And like it kind of fits exactly what you're talking about here, where it's like by using that structure, you're kind of like, and you're letting the AI do it in its own way. It's not like you're forcing the system, but it's like map this out into physical things. I mean, they're not truly physical, obviously, but like more of a like physical structure than your typical like prompt structures and all that type of stuff that you see in an agent setup. And so I think there's something there just in general. And I think it's really interesting too, because, you talked about MCPs and how that's like the connective tissue and whatnot. And just like the potential for a system like this, but then tapping into just more and more things where it's like, you can tailor it to whatever your system is and whatever your life is, instead of it being that one size fits all where, you've got an app and it does XYZ and you've got to fit your mind into it. Like this gives a really interesting, flexibility to it. I think. So did you say you have this going into a to-do list as well somewhere, or is it
so
like
I don't have
interface?
Right. Good question. So I don't have it directly putting anything into the to-do list because the one I'm using, TickTick, I haven't even looked if they have any kind of API or whatever. But that is something that I would love to get to at some point.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth too, like I'll even take a step back that Claude Cowork has a bunch of, I'm forgetting, I think they're called plugins now. They also have a productivity plugin, which I messed with for a little bit, and it actually did some similar things too. Like it was kind of doing a folder structure and whatever. Although that seemed like it was a little more, like, I mean, it was based on whatever they planned it to be. So it was not as freeform as mine. My system ended up being, I guess. But the point being there is that, there's some things that like that was doing that I kind of took inspiration from as well. And then like Obi's post, but I forget, what was your question though? Kind of diverged there.
Talking from a UI perspective, like, is it just
your
terminal, like your Claude code interactions, or
that's what made me right. That's actually what made me think of the productivity thing from Claude Cowork, because when I started with that one, I only messed around with that for like a day, but I specifically asked it that same question, basically of like, or not the same question, but the question was, I've got this TickTick to-do list thing going and it's working well, but like it seems like this is going to be the same thing, so should I just not use that anymore? And its response was like, oh no, you should still keep that and kind of use them in tandem. And so right now my UI, well, it was the terminal up until today, like I said. that failed me for the moment, and now I'm into Claude desktop. And so but my interface is basically just the chat. And I will pull, like, it gives me the top 3 priorities, and I just make sure those make sense. I do pull those into TickTick, again, because that app has, the niceties of showing me a little icon at the top of my screen saying, you've got 3 to-dos or 2 to-dos or whatever. And that just seems to help my brain. Whereas when it was all in the terminal, or even in Claude or Claude desktop, you're not getting that same I guess icon or whatever to remind you to go back to.
There's not a persistent UI that reminds you that there's something there. You have to physically go and because I mean, obviously you can look back at chat and whatnot, but like you kind of have to
Yeah.
ask it for status at certain points. And so like,
Right. I mean, in the whole Obsidian thing, which I haven't looked too closely to what people are doing, but that I get that that's probably the interface people are using is they use Obsidian. And I kind of was, like I said, but I haven't been using, like, I think it has like today.md and stuff like
sure.
that, kind of like your system
Yeah,
potentially. But, and I probably could just go to Obsidian and see that, but I'm
yeah,
choosing not to because partially because I like the fact that this doesn't give me overload. I don't have a huge
yeah,
page
yep,
full of all this stuff. I just have the three things, and then I put the bare minimum into TickTick to track it there. And again, I'd love to have something where it's connected. Maybe I build something at some point that just
sure.
does that.
Yeah,
I don't know. Um, but yeah, it's been working pretty well. And then yes, if I have questions or if I forget something, I might scroll back up a little bit. But if it takes too long, then I just ask it again. It'll
yeah,
surface it
for
for
sure.
me. But it's I mean, it's been a couple weeks, like I said, and it's been really great. And I'm sure there's more I can do with it. I'll just add that, I have been hesitant to add OpenClaw for a lot of different reasons. And part of me, I just want to test what I can do with Claude Code and push that as far as I can first. Because I don't even know what I would do with OpenClaw that I can't do right now with Claude Code.
Here's the funny thing, and it's actually very topical because just today I saw that Anthropic released something called Dispatch, which
Okay.
essentially gives you the ability to treat. I think it's Cowork, but I can't remember if it's both. Essentially, like OpenClaw, like it's
Okay.
essentially like they've now set it up so Claude Cowork is going to be their OpenClaw. So it's like,
It's kind of what I figured they would do.
but here's the big thing, and I loved this take on it was essentially it is OpenClaw without having to essentially sandbox it so it doesn't kill your computer or spend all your money or all that type of stuff. So
Yep.
I think it's OpenClaw. I think there was some cool things there, but I think it was also, I would call it like a prototype. Like, yes, you can achieve stuff with it, but you're also putting yourself, I mean, think of it this way. If people are buying Mac minis just to run this thing for fear
Yep.
that it's going to completely destroy your computer, like that's not a production ready application, like,
Right. Yep.
so I think it's really like, it was kind of ahead of its time a little bit, but it has solidified now for, Anthropic. They'll do a
Yeah.
better job of it from something that people can actually use in mass. Like you don't have to be a security expert to deal with it. Like the amount of, you know, I think they're called plugins or whatever they are for OpenClaw. It was like the top 10, there was like 5 of them were malware. So it's like, that's just not cool. Like I get it. Like I get why people jumped on it, but it's like, I've kind of held back because I didn't see anything to your point. It's like I didn't see anything that was like, I have to have this to do whatever. Like I was achieving most of the stuff anyway, just a little less automated. And I figured it was a matter of time before Anthropic or somebody else came out with a safer, more integrated version to all the other stuff I'm doing anyway. So it's like, I'll just
Yep.
wait for that.
Yeah, I agree. That was always my feeling too. I mean, Cowork's been out. I don't even think it's been a month yet either. So it's
No.
like it came out shortly after OpenClaw, and
Yeah.
it already at that point it felt like a very stripped down OpenClaw. But yeah, to your point, like it felt like the safer version to get some of the niceties. And I mean, I've been able to integrate with Slack and all that stuff
Yeah.
instantly with Cowork.
Yep.
So that was kind of the things I really need. I don't need something to back in the background be managing, and I don't need to be like,
No.
using WhatsApp to manage
Yeah.
my personal calendar or my finances or any of that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like,
Exactly.
I don't want to give it all away. I
Yeah.
still want to be human in a way that I have to do certain things still,
Exactly.
but I also want to be productive,
Yeah.
Maybe that's kind of a good place to start wrapping up is just like, there's a lot of things, right? Like this, I've got one system. You've already tried a system, and I mean, maybe to even come back to that, like, where are you with yours? Are you still? We talked about how you still needed to kind of get some structure. Are you still working on it? Did you abandon that? What are you doing?
While we were recording this, I just got my daily afternoon. I've got an afternoon and morning message from
Okay.
Claude. So it runs the schedule, it looks through all my stuff, and then sends me a message. So I'm still running it. I think too, and it's kind of the point I was bringing up with your system as well. For me, it's like, what's that UI layer beyond chat that really kind of like brings it all together? And like, I haven't found the right answer yet. And I think it's just kind of that question. And actually, the funny thing is, it was almost a year ago now, I'd come across an article that was like, turn Obsidian into your, it was more like geared towards your second brain, but it was essentially the same thing, where it's like, you have Claude, and at this point, I don't even think Claude Code was really a thing when I did this, but it was like, even Claude can work in MD files if you're using the desktop app at that point. So it could then start writing markdown files you ingested into Obsidian. And, the cool thing there was just like, Obsidian has the ability to like create a graph essentially. So you can start linking concepts, which I was kind of interested in that, but I never really took off with it. So
that's actually what I've seen on X recently, like just this week, is people using the graph. And I'll be honest, I've used Obsidian off and on for the last 2+ years.
Sure.
And I've known about the graph and I've never taken advantage of it. So maybe that's something I'm missing. I don't know. Maybe I need to get into that, but you don't have to.
No, for sure. But that's the thing, is I think all of this is like, it's fun to experiment and see, because, we're at a time now where with AI, everything's changing, so like, sure, you can build a bunch of apps, which is cool. And, we both have done a bunch of that, but it's also like, how can you use existing things and just like even use the AI the way it is to push it further than, what you can do out of the box. And so I think it's just really fun time to explore and see how we can, optimize, because, the point isn't to let the AI do everything. That's the part I struggle with, is like, I use AI every day, and like I use it for probably more than I ever would have thought I would. But I still look back.
I mean, just to put a pin in that, or just a thought on that one, like when we first started recording this, I think our whole, discussions were around like, oh, it's not that great. And now look at where we are now, so.
For sure. But there are still times where I look just at the state of things and like where a lot of this is going. And I'm like, yeah, I want to get rid of the stuff that is boring.
Yes.
But like, there's so much in life that I don't want AI to take over. It's like, watching AI video right now, like, sure, it's getting better and better, but I'm still like,
I still have no interest in that. Yeah,
it's like, exactly.
I would much rather a human make something.
Yeah, like the thing, and that's the part that's like, AI replacing all the busy work, I get, but AI replacing the busy work and the fun stuff, it's like, what's left? Like, what's the point of life if we literally don't do anything? Like, this is very much
plug in the Matrix.
Well, have you ever seen Wall-E before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like the people in Wall-E, man. Like, I don't want that to be my life. And so it's like trying to find that, how can you get rid of the boring stuff to do the fun stuff and actually like think about more interesting things. And so like, that's why the productivity stuff is interesting to me, because it is like not just using it to automate everything, but how can you use it to make the boring stuff easier or go away as much as possible, so you can think about interesting things and build interesting things and like really like abstract that layer that just isn't worthwhile.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's probably a good place to end. That's good sentiment. I like it. So yeah, thanks for checking it out. I'll just note that, we're going to try and be a little more regular about this now, and there might be a few more things coming. Don't want to spoil them until we actually get it going, but AI will be helping us, I think, with some of that stuff. So this has been good, and I'll talk to you soon.